I still remember the exact moment something inside me broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in a quiet, final way that I could never undo. It was the moment my own mother looked me in the eye, standing at the entrance of my sister's wedding, and told me to leave as if I did not belong there, not as her daughter, not even as family, but as someone distant and inconvenient. That was the day I stopped believing that love and loyalty automatically come back to you just because you give them freely. My name is Vanessa Carter, and for most of my life, I believed that family was everything. I believed that no matter how far you lived, no matter how busy life became, you showed up, you helped, you sacrificed, and in return, when it really mattered, your family would be there for you too. That belief shaped every decision I made, including the one that would eventually cost me more than I ever imagined. I had been living in Melbourne for nearly 7 years, building a stable life and career far away from my hometown in the United States. The distance was hard at times, but I tried to stay connected in every way I could. Whenever something went wrong back home, I was the one who got the call. If there was a financial problem, I found a way to help. If someone needed advice, I listened for hours. Over time, I stopped feeling like a daughter or a sister and started feeling like a solution people reached for when things went wrong. When my younger sister Lily called me one night to tell me she was engaged, I felt genuinely happy for her. I could hear the excitement in her voice, the way she laughed and cried at the same time as she held up her ring to the camera. I congratulated her over and over, asking about every detail of the proposal, imagining how beautiful her wedding would be. Without hesitation, I told her I would be there no matter what it took. A few weeks later, my mother called me with what she described as a small favor. She explained that some of the wedding vendors required contracts to be signed by someone with strong financial credibility, and since I had the best credit score in the family, she asked if I could step in and help. There was no hesitation in my answer. I trusted them completely. It felt like another way to support my sister during one of the most important moments of her life. What I did not realize at the time was that I was not just helping. I was taking on responsibility that would eventually be used against me. Over the next several months, I signed contract after contract. The venue, the catering service, the florist, the photographer, even the entertainment. Each agreement carried deposits that quickly added up to thousands of dollars. I remember asking once or twice about how the remaining balances would be handled, and every time I was reassured that it was just temporary, that the family would take care of everything after the wedding. I believed them because I wanted to believe them. As the wedding planning continued, something began to feel off. Conversations were happening without me. Group chats existed that I was not part of. Decisions were made, changed, and finalized without my input, even though my name was on nearly every major contract. When I asked questions, the responses were short and vague, as if I was interrupting something I was not meant to be involved in. I told myself I was overthinking. Weddings are stressful. People get busy. Not everything needs to include everyone. That was the excuse I repeated to myself every time something did not feel right. Despite the growing distance, I continued preparing for the trip. I booked an expensive international flight, reserved a hotel close to the venue, bought a thoughtful wedding gift, and used a significant portion of my vacation time from work. I wanted to show up fully, to be present not just physically but emotionally. The day before the wedding, I arrived exhausted from the long flight but still hopeful. I sent messages letting everyone know I had landed. The replies were polite but distant, short acknowledgments with no real excitement. No one suggested meeting up. No one asked how I was feeling after the journey. Still, I told myself it would be different once I saw them in person. The next afternoon, I got ready slowly, taking my time with my hair and makeup, choosing a dress that felt appropriate for the occasion. As I looked at myself in the mirror, I felt a quiet sense of anticipation. This was my sister's wedding. No matter what had happened leading up to it, this moment would be different. When I arrived at the venue, everything looked exactly how I had imagined. The decorations were elegant, the music floated gently through the air, and guests were laughing and mingling. For a brief moment, I felt proud I had helped make this possible, but that feeling lasted only a few seconds. As I approached the entrance, my mother stepped directly in front of me, blocking my path before I could even walk inside. Her expression was cold, unfamiliar, and completely devoid of warmth. She did not ask about my trip. She did not greet me. She simply told me, in a quiet but firm voice, that I needed to leave. At first, I thought I had misunderstood. I tried to explain who I was, as if that would somehow fix the situation. I told her I was Lily's sister, that I had flown halfway across the world to be there. But the look in her eyes did not change. If anything, it hardened. Then, in front of another guest, She referred to me as a distant relative, someone who was not part of the immediate family. The words hit me harder than I expected. It was not just rejection, it was erasure. In that moment, everything became clear. This was not a misunderstanding. This had been planned. The realization was almost too heavy to process. I stood there, holding the gift I had carefully chosen, feeling like a stranger at an event I had helped create. The hurt was overwhelming, but beneath it was something else, something quieter but stronger, clarity. I did not argue. I did not create a scene. I placed the gift gently near the entrance and turned around. Each step away from that building felt heavier than the last, but with every step, I felt something inside me shifting. By the time I reached my car, I understood something I had refused to see for years. The problem had never been distance. It had never been timing or circumstances. It was that I had been giving everything to people who had never truly valued me. Back in my hotel room, I sat in silence for a long time before opening my laptop. One by one, I pulled up the contracts I had signed. The numbers were staggering. Tens of thousands of dollars still owed, all tied to my name, my signature, my responsibility. That was the moment I realized just how serious the situation was. Later that evening, I received a call from a relative who had witnessed what happened at the venue. She was angry on my behalf, more angry than I had allowed myself to be. She told me things I had not known, confirmed suspicions I had ignored, and reminded me of something simple but powerful. Being related to someone does not give them unlimited access to your generosity. The next morning, I made a decision that changed everything. I contacted each vendor individually. My tone was calm, professional, and direct. I explained that I would no longer be authorizing payments for an event I had been denied access to. I requested that all future invoices be redirected to the individuals who were actually hosting and benefiting from the wedding. There were no threats, no emotional outbursts, just a clear boundary. The response was immediate. Within hours, my phone began ringing. Calls, messages, voicemails. Some tried to guilt me, reminding me of family obligations. Others tried to pressure me, insisting that I was overreacting. But every conversation revealed the same truth. They were not concerned about what they had done. They were concerned about the money. Lily eventually reached out asking for help. But even then, her message focused on her stress, her problems, her situation. There was no acknowledgement of what had happened to me, no real apology. That was when I understood something that would stay with me forever. An apology without accountability is not an apology. It is just a request to move on without change. Weeks passed, and the consequences of their actions began to spread. People started asking questions. The story made its way through the community, and the carefully constructed image of a perfect wedding began to crack. Months later, I received a message from my father. For the first time in years, he admitted that he had failed me. He told me that staying silent that day was something he would regret for the rest of his life. It did not fix what had happened, but it was the first moment of genuine accountability I had seen. I focused on rebuilding myself instead of chasing relationships that only existed when I was useful. Therapy helped me understand how often I had confused sacrifice with love, how I had accepted less than I deserved because I thought it was better than nothing. About a year after the wedding, Lily reached out again. This time her message was different. There were no excuses, no requests. She admitted that she had known more than she should have and that staying silent was something she regretted every day. It did not erase the past, but it was real. We began speaking again slowly, carefully. The relationship was not the same, but for the first time, it felt honest. My mother, however, remained silent for a long time. But the truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deeply it is buried. Eventually, she could no longer avoid it. Almost 18 months after the wedding, I received a handwritten letter from her. It was not perfect, it was not dramatic, but for the first time, it contained something I had never seen from her before. Responsibility. She admitted that she had spent years prioritizing appearances over relationships. That fear had guided to many of her decisions. It was not the apology I had imagined, but it was real enough to matter. Today, when I think back to that day outside the wedding, I no longer see it as the moment I lost my family. I see it as the moment I finally found myself. Because sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is not fight for a place where you are not wanted. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is walk away, build your own table, and choose carefully who gets a seat at it.